Am I the asshole for telling my boyfriend to get out after he slapped me? Throwaway. I, 25 years female, have been with my boyfriend Tom, 27 years male, for about a year and a half. We've had our ups and downs, but nothing too serious until recently. A few days ago, we got into a heated argument over something relatively small. He was upset that I had made plans with some friends without checking with him first. Things escalated, and in the middle of the argument, he suddenly slapped me across the face. I was in complete shock. It wasn't a playful or accidental slap. It was hard, and it hurt. I couldn't believe it. In that moment, all I could think was that this crossed a line that I never expected. I immediately told him to get out of my apartment. He seemed equally shocked by what he did and started apologizing right away, saying it was a heat-of-the-moment thing and that he didn't mean to hurt me. But I wasn't interested in hearing his excuses. I told him I needed him to leave so I could process what had just happened. He tried to stay and talk it out, but I stood firm and told him to go. Eventually, he left, but he's been texting me constantly saying he's sorry, that he loves me, and that he didn't mean for it to happen. He's begging for another chance and promising it'll never happen again. Since then, I've been struggling with whether I overreacted by kicking him out immediately. Some of my friends say I did the right thing, that I should never tolerate physical violence in any form. But others have suggested that I might have acted too quickly and should have at least let him explain or worked it out instead of throwing him out right away, especially since this is the first time something like this has ever happened. I know what he did was wrong, but part of me wonders if I should have handled it differently, especially since we've never had an issue like this before. Am I the asshole for telling my wife she owes me an apology for these last 7 years of marriage? I'm 32, and my wife is 32. We dated in high school and got married 7 years ago. My wife has always been a scatterbrain. Before marriage, she was always misplacing things and leaving everything half-finished. She was chronically late, had clutter all over her living space, and would get bursts of frustration about these messes, which would lead to hyperactivity into not really doing anything conducive towards a solution. I love her anyway, but at times it was tiring. I saw past that because I knew she was the woman I wanted to marry, and we got married when we were 25. Unfortunately, a lot of the problems that she had seemingly accelerated after marriage. We purchased a larger house because she's obsessed with storage space, but this has essentially meant 2 bedrooms are no-go zones for me. They're simply full of her clutter. Once they were full, she started leaving things in my office, which I would have to move to not trip over. I tried to convince her for years to go get diagnosed with ADHD and start treatment, but she had a really negative view of ADHD. She viewed it similarly to how she views schizophrenia or psychosis. Not that there's anything wrong with these conditions, but she believes there is. A couple of months ago, she had a girls' night out, and she came home telling me that she might have ADHD. I had been telling her that for years until she decided that she would have a meltdown every time I brought up ADHD. I first figured it was because she was 30 minutes late and it caused an issue with her friend. But no. She described her frustrations to her friends, and one of them told her that she might have ADHD. A bit of a side note, but when I said it, it was the worst insult imaginable to her. When her friends said it, it was helpful commentary. Well, my wife finally got herself diagnosed the day before yesterday. She came home from the doctor talking about how it explained everything. I responded that I felt I was owed an apology. She was initially confused, but I responded that if she had actually addressed this when I asked her all those years ago, I wouldn't have had to live with the constant stress of her chronic tardiness, clutter, emotional outbursts, and so on. She responded by shrieking at me, and now she's refusing to even have a word. I feel like I may have taken it too far, but were my words towards her justifiable? Am I asshole for shaming an American for only knowing English after he mocked me for mispronouncing an English word? I'm French, living in Paris. My parents are both from Spain and raised me speaking Spanish. And I taught myself English through reading novels and news in English. So I'm perfectly trilingual. My American friend Max, who's spending 1 year studying at La Sorbonne, only speaks English. He often uses me as a French translator for him. He tells me in English what he wants to say, and I repeat it in French to his interlocutor. Today I said "aurai" like "ow, re." Max found it to be the most hilarious thing and kept making, in my opinion, mean jokes about, OMG, can you imagine being so bad at English, that's how you pronounce awry? So after a few minutes of him laughing his butt off at my expense, my patience ran out and I told him, we are both speaking English because it's the only language you know. I learned English by reading it, rarely hearing it spoken, so of course my pronunciation won't always be flawless. How flawless is your French pronunciation? If you don't cut it out right now, I will speak to you exclusively in French and only acknowledge your answer when you say it in French. And it better be flawless. If you make any grammar or pronunciation mistake, however tiny, I will mock you endlessly. He did stop mocking me, but he pivoted to, geez, get a sense of humor. There was no need to be so nasty to me. Why would you dangle your multiple languages in front of me? That was mean. Am I the asshole for saying what I said? Am I the asshole for telling my mom she's allowed to get married again, but it doesn't mean I'll approve? My dad died when I, 26, was 17. Now, my mom has gotten serious with someone else, a guy my dad worked. This is a man who hated my dad, and my dad hated him. Mom and I knew about it. There was bad blood for almost 20 years between them. And when Dad died, her future husband was the only person at the job who didn't sign the card for us. And my dad would have done the same. So for me, there's a strong dislike about Mom's choice of partner. But they connected 2 years ago, and both fell hard. She's excited to marry him and have a future together. She even talked about sharing grandkids, which I made a big face at and told her it wouldn't be happening, which is when we talked. I told her she can get married, and to whoever she wanted to, but the fact she married him is not something I approve of exactly, and I will not allow him to be a grandfather to my future kids, and he won't be someone I try to get close to. Mom told me that's unfair. I told her she can feel that way, but that man hates my dad. My dad hated him. I said there is no part of me that wants him around, but I accept she does. I told her I had to come to terms with her choice in partner, and I tolerate it. But I want him in my life as little as possible. She told me he's a good man, and yes, it's awkward with his feelings on Dad, but we shouldn't hate him for it, and he's easy to love. I told her I'm not going to love and accept a man who hates my dad. I asked her how he'll take Dad's presence being around all the time, including at my upcoming wedding next year. She told me it won't be easy for him and that a lot of people are already against him because of his and Dad's beef. Mom got upset and said she really wants my approval of him and for him to be approved to be a future grandfather and FEL to my fiancé. I told her I won't ever stop her marrying him, but I won't approve. She's angry and upset with me. She said she wants to share all this with him and she deserves it, even if I don't think he does. Am I asshole?